mile every single day for 100 days. Why? I accidentally signed up for the Dead Dads subscription club, and when I realized I accidentally purchased the lifelong package, I figured might as well take advantage of their do anything to avoid processing your feelings package, and restarted my run streak. Here's what happened. Let's just say I had a rough start to 2025, and I wasn't really in the best place mentally or physically. And I fell off my running. I was doing it, but it was very sporadic. And looking back at my stats from my sleep, HRV, resting heart rate, speed, not the best. And I really didn't have any plans on changing them. I was just looking at them and miserable and basking in my miserableness. But as my run streak started, and I just did it as a simple some kind of victory, things started to change in my body, and that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. Okay, let's start this run streak day 1. Number 1, cardiovascular, which is probably the most important to me because my father did pass due to cardiovascular disease, and I'm genetically cursed in this department, so anytime I can see progress, I am happy. Day 2, just gonna go see where we end up. Number 1 change, my VO2 max went from 39.5 to 43. The higher the better. Note, I only used my Apple Watch to test this. I didn't have access and I didn't have the fortitude at the start to think to test my VO2 max test in an actual lab. Day 4. Just finished a 24-hour travel day. This could be the world's slowest run. Which brings me to how accurate is the Apple Watch VO2 max? According to a study investigating the accuracy of Apple Watch VO2 max measurements, a validation study in the National Library of Medicine by Rory Lamble, Jen Grady, Maximus Baldwin, and Cahill Doherty, they tested 30 people and found, on average, it was about 6 points lower than the real lab results. That's a 13% error rate on average, but it could be off even more depending on the person. AKA, according to the study, if your VO2 max is 45, you can expect it to actually be more around 39. But it still allowed you to show trends, which I saw the trend of it improving, which was really exciting and a lot more accessible to the average person. Run number 7. It's so windy. Oh my God. 2, my resting heart rate. According to my Oura Ring, it went from 60 beats per minute to 54. The lower your resting heart rate, the better. And you can test this with wearables, and ideally right when you wake up, because things like even as simple as your digestion, any kind of movement can change your resting heart rate, or just sit relaxed for a long time. 3, my heart rate variability, which can be your body's how stressed it is / your body's ability to process stress is kind of what the HRV people are deeming it as. And mine started to improve, but I will say I do think this was more because I got into running, I prioritized recovery more, and I got my sleep better. And as every week my sleep got a little bit better, so did my HRV. And I can make this correlation because every night my sleep was better, my HRV was better. Every time my sleep was bad, my HRV was worse. So correlation versus causation is running made me focus on recovery more. Recovery led to improved HRV. Now that was kind of boring, but important. What about the performance metrics? How did running a mile every day change my actual running? Number 1, my running economy. Simply, my running felt better and faster. I really started focusing on using my glutes, hamstring, and kicking my heels up in a circular motion running, which makes it more efficient. In essence, while I really focused on utilizing these muscles, pushing forward, not up, and improving my running form, I was able to run harder, but it felt easier. Back in Edmonton, hometown. Woo! Number 2, my 5-kilometer and 10-kilometer time. I didn't directly measure this. If you want to see how much faster you're getting, you can run your 5 or 10 kilometer at your fastest pace at the start of your training. But for me, I just kind of looked at segments on my Strava and Runna and just saw how randomly 5 and 10 kilometers in my longer runs were getting faster. God, the wind. Going so slow. And you can do this every 4 to 12 weeks. Test your 5-kilometer and see if it's gotten any better, or see if you can run at the same pace and it feels easier. Number 3 that you can also test is your lactate threshold. This is kind of the new gold standard of testing when it comes to running training. But you will need different machines. There's things you can get on Amazon. They're expensive. You have to do like blood pics and stuff like that. You can also do tests done. I never did this, but it's an option for you if you're interested. Uh-oh. It's not looking good. Oh no. I had to wear my winter jacket today. Today might be one of the toughest days of my life. So instead of doing therapy, I'm gonna see as close to half marathon as I can get today. Number 3 area, muscle and skeletal adaptations. Number 1, muscle endurance. Specifically in my calves, quads, hamstrings, and glutes. There was always one of them that was very unhappy with me. And it would give out, causing some kind of pain somewhere. And then I would strengthen said muscle. And suddenly it wasn't an issue, something else was my issue. And it was kind of always that domino pull and pull effect. But by the end, I just noticed no other muscle was really the neglected because I made sure to strength train any of my weaknesses. Second, bone density. Now, running can improve bone density, but it's way more optimal to do weight-bearing exercises like weight training. And the most accurate way to see your bone density is through a DEXA scan. There is at-home scales and stuff that test it. I have one of those. I found it's never as accurate as any time I've done DEXA, and there was no real changes in my bone density during this time. But 3, tendon, joint, and ligament. This is one issue I feel a lot of people have when they increase volume too much, and I've done this in the past. I went from never running over 20K to suddenly running 10K one day, and your body and your joints and ligaments are just not used to constantly being slammed against the pavement.
It is day 30.
And I'm happy to say that every week, by slowly increasing by a few kilometers, I was able to never exceed what adaptations my joints and ligaments had made. So I allowed them time to adapt, because it's not just your muscles and your lungs, it's everything else in your body that needs to adapt to the increased volume, which by going slow and steady, thanks to my Runna program. Also, I do have a Runna code if you want to use. They're not sponsoring this video, but the option is there for a 2-week free trial. I absolutely loved it. And that program allowed me to slowly increase and allow time for my body to adapt.
We just passed 21K right now. So I'm going to turn around and run about 1K back, which would put me in my longest run ever at 22K, and have a reward waiting for me.
For metabolic and cellular changes I saw in my body. Mitochondrial density. Improved VO2 max means improved mitochondrial function. AK, if your VO2 improves, your mitochondrial, the powerhouse of your cell, also improves. So I, as a geek, just think it's cool that when my VO2 max is improving, the little powerhouse of my cell is working better. Pretty cool. Science geek. 2, insulin sensitivity. Running and most exercises improve glucose regulation, which can lower risk for metabolic disease. I have in the past worn a continuous glucose monitor for a video, and I do have very low natural blood sugar. I can throw a lot of sugar at myself, and like I said, I'm genetically cursed when it comes to cardiovascular and like lipids, but when it comes to sugar and all that, I can kind of throw whatever's at my body and I'm fine. There's no diabetes or anything like that in my family. And actually, I went and got some blood work done just for some other things, and I noticed my blood sugar was really, really low. So I made sure to really up my carbs and sugar during my runs to help with this. And this is something that's going to be really individual. So it's just something I want to include. Insulin sensitivity in there. It is one barometer, but for yourself, for me, naturally low blood sugar, naturally low blood pressure, which is another reason I also consume a lot of sodium as well, because I find that helps a lot, and it helps with cramps and all that. And when I'm running more, you're sweating more and you're losing electrolytes. Now, my electrolyte balance though has always been good, because of course I supplement with Element, because it's a science-based ratio of 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. I love it. It tastes delicious. The citrus, so unbelievable. I also love the grapefruit, but because we're getting into cozy season, the chocolate is making an appearance. I know it sounds crazy. You're like, chocolate? No. Think salted hot chocolate, a little hot cocoa before or after your run is such a vibe. Also, if you're someone like me who sometimes just drinks too much coffee purely because of the yummy warmness, there's another alternative. And of course, if you're sitting in a sedentary job all day, not moving, you don't need an electrolyte supplement. But a lot of you watching a running video are running, and specifically when you're working out over an hour a day and sweating a lot, if you live in a hotter climate, you want to look into supplement with electrolyte. And I love Element because it's used by professionals in the NBA, NHL, NFL, and of course, it just tastes delicious. And I'm not going to talk about it and not give you guys a code. Of course, go to drinkelementtea.com/Keltie and you will get one of their bestseller packs, which is a great way to try their most popular flavors like raspberry, orange, citrus with your purchase. Once again, that's drinkelementtea.com/Keltie. Thank you, Element, for sponsoring this video. And back to metabolic changes, your resting metabolic rate. If you didn't know, there's a couple different things that make up your metabolism. Your resting metabolic rate is what it takes to just function, for your heart to beat, to blood to circulate, your brain to work. Anything else you add is going to be other things, which add up to your total daily energy expenditure. That's how many calories you burn for the whole day. Me moving, that's added things. It's extra movement. Me digesting my food takes it. Exercise is another thing. It's you walking. There's all these things that add on. But now you can, not a lot, but change your resting metabolic rate by adding more muscle, because muscle is more metabolically active. So yes, technically your resting metabolism will raise if you add more muscle. And if you're running, I hope you're strength training, which is adding more muscle. And as long as you're fueling, getting enough protein and calories that you're not losing your muscle and you actually can be gaining muscle, you can actually increase your resting metabolic rate. And 4, hormones. And I just want to mention, I did not see any decrease. That is a big myth in the world that, running is bad for your knees. Cardio is going to mess your hormones. Cortisol base, that's all over the internet. And I just want to once again repeat Dr. Stacy Sims' quote, there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovering. And so by making sure to eat enough, sleep enough, rest enough, do all those recovery things you need to do, I didn't mess up my hormones during this. So it sounds easier said than done, because if you're in a really high pressure job, if you have kids, if you have limited time, it is going to be a lot harder. So I think that's not talked about a lot. I think people just think working out more is what makes it hard to recovery. And I say your lifestyle outside of the gym is actually what's going to impact this the most, because a professional athlete has all the time to work on recovery. A mom working 2 jobs with 3 kids does not have the luxury to focus on recovery and making sure she's eating enough, sleeping enough. And so I want to also give you grace. Anyone listening to this is a very stressful job. You have to count that you won't have as much time to recover. And so that is a big risk for a lot of people. So I want to also premise that's a luxury thing I have without having kids, some disposable income and hours to devote to recovery. And I still have to work many hours, and I found I had to put up a lot of boundaries versus someone whose full-time job is just running. So no one's right or wrong. Just realize there's a spectrum of how much time you have to recover and how much you can push your body. And just realize there's a spectrum, and the more stress you have, the harder it's going to be. That is a poor graph, but you get it.
I got an early morning flight, so I'm up at 4 a.m. to run. Crazy.
Now, I will premise in saying, before we get to some other really fun things I noticed, is no, I didn't just run a mile every single day. I had to run at least a mile every single day. The first, I'd say 60 days, it was really maybe 5 days of the week I was running a mile, and then 1 long run and 1 interval session.
Hungover and it's raining. Great. Oh, Lord.
And then near the end of the 100 days, I started my marathon training. I have a full marathon video if you want to go. But these things I'm really talking about, primarily the changes I got before I even went into marathon training. And yeah, the reality is I had multiple variables, and there's multiple things that can impact it. And I am a human. I'm not a lab rat, and I cannot just change one variable of my life and know exactly it. Sometimes you have the blessing of just taking fish oil and changing nothing else about your body and seeing how it reacts. But the reality is that's not the place I'm in right now. But using professionals like Peter Tia and Dr. Stacy Sims, I do know I was getting over 150 minutes a week of zone 2 and combined over 10 minutes in zone 5. And time again, it really seems to be do a lot of low intensity things throughout the week, and a bit of really high intensity things is going to see things in improvement, like your VO2 max. And for me, the mile did it. And because I'm kind of one of those persons that can do like a little bit every day just to get me going. And some days I'm fine with just doing that, and other days I'll push myself. Other people's schedule work better of just doing like 10 minutes every day. Some people twice a week, 60 minutes. As long as it's combining to that 150 minutes to 180 zone 2, ideally, or eventually work up. Just realize that you can kind of makeshift it how it works best with your routines. And that might be doing something every single day for 30 days. And for other people, it's once or twice a week, bigger batches. It all kind of evens out to be the same. That's kind of the point I'm trying to get across. Now, the 5th thing, once again, we kind of briefly talked about this, but recovery and sleep.
Quick mile before my international flight.
1, my sleep quality. Placebo effect, definitely, but there was improvements. simply because I felt like an athlete again. I felt like I was working out at a goal, I was accomplishing. And for me, once I have that little ripple effect that I feel like an athlete, I start to treat my body like an athlete, and I treat my body better because I make sure to get some sleep in, because I'm like, oh, I got to be properly recovered. And I maybe deep down gaslight myself that I'm a professional athlete, which was probably a dream of little Keltie. And so I try to act like it. And so then, yeah, I focus on things like sleep. So it's a placebo effect because I felt like more an athlete. So I concentrate more on my sleep. So my sleep quality improved.
Long run Saturdays, 18K. Well, let's rip it at a nice conversational pace.
And 2, recovery metrics. There's things like Apple's sleep score, Whoop strain, Aura's readiness. All the wearables have different, recovery metrics. And for the most part, I noticed mine were only in the red once or twice from training. They were primarily always in the good or great, aside from when I went out drinking. And then, yes, it's always in the red. And my activity trackers think I'm dying. And I'm sitting there and be like, no, I just drank 6 Guinnesses. But the reality is I don't think I ever got into the red, is because I slowly increased my volume and focused on recovery and sleep. And because of that, my readiness scores, my strain scores were never really in a bad place. Like, I never was overtraining according to them. And yes, you can definitely overtrain by running every day. But like I said, slow and steady, nothing too crazy.
First easy run as an auntie. My brother's wife did birth last night. Oh my God. I just have so much joy right now.
6, psychological and cognitive metrics. 1, mood and mental health. Exercise boosts dopamine and serotonin. So yeah, I felt good. 2, stress resilience. Daily aerobic activity can help to improve cortisol regulation. I've seen some things about that online. It's just a fancy way of saying exercising more gives you more willpower and grit and more ability to take on more stress. 3, cognitive benefit. Aerobic exercises is linked to improved memory, focus, and even brain plasticity in some studies. AKA, that was a really fancy way of saying when you show up every day to exercise, you increase your confidence because you said you're going to do something and you did it. And I think that's a great way to improve your confidence. Also, exercises gives you good vibes and something, it makes you feel like a win every day. And there's that quote going around on Instagram that like depression can't hit a moving target. And yes, I'm not saying it's that black and white that you just need to keep moving and you're going to outrun depression. It doesn't work that way. But there is something about always working towards something is just human nature. And I know for me, I'm just happiest when I'm doing that. And regardless, I just love that quote. I love that quote so much. Like, those are one of those quotes you write it down. Yes, there's problems in it. Regardless, when I'm just depressed, like, just do something. Do something. It helps. As someone who lost, in the Dead Dads Club, so, I feel I can say that now with confidence. just kept moving. I literally did that. That was the run streak. Wow, yeah. No wonder it hit.
Today's the longest run so far of this training cycle. The dogs are cheering me on. We're at 20K. Conversational pace.
And lastly, 7, practical lifestyle outcomes. It provided me consistency and discipline. It was a reminder of my ability to stick to routines, but mainly every day having a little win, I find is a ripple effect. It made me want to sleep better, so I recover better, so I strength train, so I reduce energy. The extra carbs fueled my workouts, and in turn, from pushing myself harder and recovering even harder, I was allowed to see all these changes. In a world that focuses so much on how you look, and the running world so focused on how fast you run, I wanted to show you some other wins that will happen along your running journey. Now, of course, you can become obsessed with any of these stats I talked about, but I don't think it's talked about enough how you can be running for a year, 2, 3 years. Your body doesn't physically look like it's changing. You might not be running any faster times. Your average paces might not be improving, and you might be so frustrated, but under the surface, all these things could be changing. You could have more resilience that applies to your work. Your HRV could be improving. Your bone density could be improving. Your VO2 max, which is linked to longevity. There's so many other factors that are not seen by just how you look and how fast you run. And that was what the point of this video is, and what I wanted to get across. Is as much as it's great to have a goal and run faster, as much as if you have a body composition goal, you want to change something that will make you happier and healthier, I'm all for it. But at the end of the day, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. And ain't that the whole point?
Day 100. And I ironically just have a mile today. I did it. Yeah. This feels good.
So Next time you're on your running journey, you're a little frustrated that your pace isn't getting faster, things aren't changing, just take a look at some of these other metrics and ask yourself if those are changing. And maybe that's what's the most important. And the most important, of course, is having a great day and go petting a dog. Wow, that was a weird transition. I was going to say the most important thing is, of course, have a great day, go pet a dog. Love you guys. Bye.